Alrighty guys, so I just wanted to give you some information on how to handle your worm bins. So the worm bins that I gave you guys, um, I had similar problems with it being dry on the top. So the way that you kind of mitigate that is putting more wet things in there. You still want to add the browns, like your leaves and whatnot, but if you can try to add dried leaves specifically, that would be helpful. So typically when you add like the leaves, what you want to do is you want to have them dry out before you put them in. I don't always do that. I kind of do it based off of the mix that I have. So I'll address the earwigs in a second, but this compost bin, so I made my own compost bins using like some $7 boxes from Walmart. You could totally do another system if you guys are having success with your worms and you're ready to kind of go on for it. So this is what each layer should kind of look like underneath. So you got some good activity, some worms, but I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So these are my worm castings, and obviously you'll see some of these bigger items that haven't really broken down yet, like the eggshells. Obviously when you put the eggshells in, you kind of want to crush them as best as you can. You know, avocado peel right there. I believe that's part of an old mango shell or seed. And it kind of looks like that down towards the bottom. With the very bottom one, you kind of want to make sure that you have that drain open. Oh god, this is heavy. You kind of want to have that drain open so that the liquid can pour out, because what will end up happening is the worms that get down in there are going to pretty much lyse, meaning that they're going to absorb too much water and they'll just die. So what I did here, so we had some pretty heavy rain, and this was actually outside. Now I keep it inside of our greenhouse because it's getting down pretty cold temperatures here. Naturally, the worms will slow down in colder temperatures. They kind of typically like temperatures above 40 degrees and usually under 100. So like in the summer, you'll put them in the shade. In the winter, you'll kind of just expect them to slow down their process and kind of hibernate, if you will, and then they'll kind of pick back up in spring if you're going to have them outside. Or in this case, where we're trying to mitigate the colder season here, that we'll have them in this greenhouse just to keep them kind of away from the water, because worms are semi-permeable membranes, meaning that they like moist environments, but if it's too wet, then they'll, like I said before, with the soupy part going in the bottom layer there, they'll actually expand and get really fat, and they'll actually die because they have too much water and they can't escape it. What I did is, when it was super wet, I took some cardboard. This is actually like egg carton material. This stuff is really great because it kind of acts as a sponge and it absorbs, and the worms really like it for their housing. So this is a really good material, but you can also take any cardboard that you have. The more porous it is, or if it has like bigger pockets, the better. That's going to be a really good way to dry out your more wet stuff. Now in your case that you guys are saying it was kind of dry, I would add a mixture of just damp, you don't need to soak it, but some wet trimmings that you guys have from either your garden, like this leaf here, or from your kitchen scraps. Now what I did back home, like I was telling Harry and Nicole, was I used an ice, gosh, why am I having a trash compactor? No. I'm having a brain fart here, I'm sorry. But I used man, why am I having a hard time with this? Anyway, one of the things that I did before I bought the disposer, the food disposer, gosh, under the sink, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, before I used that, I actually used one of our old blenders, and I would mix up some of this green material from the clippings inside, and I would even put the eggs in there, and I would blend it, and I would only put as much water as I needed to emulsify it. And once that was fully masticated, if you will, I would pour that sloth on the top of my brown bedding here, and that would provide a nice moist environment. And that does a couple different things. Like I said before, the worms are semi-permeable membranes. They like it moist. They don't like it too dry, which is why the worm activity is lower. But it also will prevent some of the environment for some of the earwigs that you guys are having problems with. Another thing to know about earwigs is they are carnivores. They eat meat, and they specifically eat invertebrates, which worms are. They don't typically go after worms unless they've taken over the colony, or the worm bin rather. And yeah, I've got really nice worm activity going on in this top one. So they have a propensity to, I don't want a rubber band in there. They do try to, they will eat some of the things that are actually bad for your worm bin. Like they'll eat some of the mites and these other little different things like fly larvae and all these other things. If you have enough worms, it's not going to be a problem. But if the earwigs completely take over, then there is a problem. So one of the ways that you can fix that is, there's two things. One is you take a sardine can, a used sardine can, you don't clean it. You leave all the oils and the stinky fish sauce that you have from that mess, and you put a little bit of oil in it, and then you just lay it inside of a spot. Like this is a perfect spot for a little sardine can. You can take that sardine can, put it right here, the oil will be there, and what they'll do is they will the earwigs will actually go into that can, and then the oil will prevent them from being able to climb out. So it's kind of like your own little, oh, check this out. This is happening right before our eyes. Sorry, I'm getting super distracted. So this was literally just whipping. This little feeler right here. It was just whipping around, looking for something to grab. And it's still doing it slowly. And we're inside, there's no wind in here. Anyway, so I thought that was cool. It was like Planet Earth moment. Anyway, so you have that little can, and then they kind of climb in there. You leave it in for like maybe 2 weeks, and then you can clean that out. I don't have any sardine cans, and I certainly wasn't about to go buy sardines just for this. So what I used instead was a tuna can, and tuna's not as stinky or fishy as sardines. So I actually put like a couple drops of fish sauce, which you can find at most grocery stores, especially at Asian markets. And I put some olive oil, and I kind of mixed that together real quick just to kind of make sure that it was thorough and that fish sauce was stinky enough. And that worked for me to capture probably a couple dozen of the earwigs. But I think if you moisture control the bed where it's moist, like I said, this, like your goal is to have it where it can't really squeeze out like what I just did. This is still really wet, but I did just feed these guys. But this is a better example. So I can squeeze it, and a little bit comes out, but it's not like overwhelmingly like a super soaked washcloth. This is damp enough, and it's still a little bit wet for my liking, but you're supposed to be able to squeeze the material and it feels wet, but it doesn't excrete a whole lot of water. So that's kind of the feel that you're looking for. If it's really wet on the drain pan, you might need to take a hose and rinse out that spigot so that you can make sure that it's not being clogged. But yeah, like I said, it's been raining pretty heavy here, and we just moved these guys in here about a week and a half ago, and I can tell you that they're looking a lot better than they did before I moved them in. They were trying to escape the walls here. Like if you have a bunch of castings on the wall, that means that the worms were climbing out in search of either food or an environment that fits better to their liking. That's typically a good sign of them trying to escape. But I had that all over my walls here, and it was because honestly they were hungry. I hadn't fed them in a while because it has been cold, and I thought I had fed them quite a bit, but I've got about, I would say probably 3,000 or 4,000 worms in here right now. Probably more actually, because this whole thing weighs probably 30 pounds. So I probably have close to 30,000 worms. But that's some signs that you want to look for. So if you're seeing the castings on the wall or on the roof of or the ceiling of that lid, the inside of that lid, it's a good sign that those worms are trying to leave for some reason. So you can try to fix the bedding that they're living in, their environment. If it's too dry, like I said, try just spraying the area a little bit and try to lessen the browns that you're giving them and just feed them only and see if that will help, and not giving them the browns. If it's too wet like this, they'll also try to escape, and then you can, I've mitigated it quite a bit by putting in the cardboard material like I had mentioned earlier. And then for the earwigs, just like I said, having that stinky fish can will really at least help. But I had that before, and I was able to resolve the earwigs with the wetter bed and with the can. So hopefully that helps. I'm sorry the information is a little late. We had some severe raining going on last night and this morning, and I wanted to be able to film this where the light was good, and we just exited a tornado warning, so or tornado watch, excuse me. There's a big difference. We were on tornado watch. The storms passed us over though, and we're okay for today. So I hope this video helps. I'm sorry that it's a little lengthy. 13 minutes is kind of long, but let me know if you have any other questions.